Hello, and welcome to the second session of our SEPAC Summer School. And today we're going to be talking about inclusion in schools. Inclusion is the theme of our sessions this summer, and I'm so glad you could join us. My name is Leslie, and I'm one of the project officers at the Federation, and we're so glad you could join us today. For those of you who are new to the Federation, we have a great website which will provide lots more information. We are the federally funded Parent Training and Information Center in Massachusetts. And so just check out our website at www.fcsn.org. For those of you who are SEPAC officers or Special Education Parent Advisory Council members, we have lots of information on our website. It can be found under the CPAC tab that's here shown on this is a snapshot of the front page of our website. There's also recordings on YouTube and all around parent leadership and other sessions from CPAC Summer School. So I advise you to visit our website, visit our YouTube channel, and access the information that you need. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about inclusion in schools. And the federal government and our state measures inclusion under one of the federal indicators, indicator number 5. We'll talk about that and I'll explain what that's all about. This is really also for you to start to understand your district's data, and how that supports conversations around what the district is doing. We'll visit a plan to kind of expand inclusion in your schools using Cotter's model of change as a structure to look at how change could happen in a school district. Change really is best implemented when a district communicates its vision and its practices and gets that buy-in, that sense of ownership from families. So it's really all about engaging both families and other stakeholders for success in this process. So I'm going to repeat just the definition of inclusion. Inclusion really isn't defined in our federal and state laws. It comes under our federal IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disability Education Act. And it really talks about where students should be receiving their services. So IDEA says, to the maximum extent appropriate, children with disabilities are educated with children who are not disabled, and any special classes, separate schooling, or other removal of children with disabilities from the regular educational environment occurs only when the nature or severity of the disability of a child is such that education in regular classes with the use of supplementary aids and services cannot be achieved satisfactorily. So this is called the least restrictive environment. We also use the acronym LRE. IDEA requires schools to place students in the least restrictive environment, and this is a team decision at the IEP meeting. There is a discussion now, there's a section of the IEP which really speaks to should the child be removed from the general education environment, and if so, the team needs to explain why on the IEP form. So one of the ways we can track how we're doing in inclusion in our schools and in our state is through the collection of data and information for one of our federal special education indicators. I believe there are 14 indicators, I can't remember, and there are performance and target indicators. A federal indicator, number 5, is a target. They're trying to have school districts meet a certain target around inclusion. And the CPAC and families can follow the district's performance on this special education indicator. I think it falls under the CPAC's advisory duty to work with the district to advise them on special education matters. When meeting with the district, SEPACs can talk about inclusion. So this federal indicator tracks inclusion, how well our state and the schools all provide all of that data for a state data point, which is shared with the federal government, to ensure that students with disabilities are educated alongside peers without disabilities. I think I have the wrong language here. And the federal indicator states that what educational environments are children and youth with disabilities a part of? In other words, asking, where are they in your school system? Do they have meaningful access to the general curriculum and the life of the school? So you can find more about our federal, our state's discussion around federal indicator number 5 at the DESE website. I have the link there. There's also YouTube on that DESE website to explain to you. There's a PowerPoint that's narrated to explain to you indicator 5. So why is it important? Because we really need to know, are students with IEPs in regular classes? Are they in that least restrictive general education environment? And if not, why not? And so that is an individual team decision, but we also need to look at it globally. Is the school district providing inclusive environments for students with disabilities? So districts should be asking themselves why students with disabilities are in separate classrooms or in separate schools. And then what they might need to improve inclusive teaching methods or learning, any type of professional development that would help promote additional inclusion opportunities in a school. I believe that indicator 5 can help begin a conversation between a SEPAC and a district about how you can improve and encourage more inclusive environments at your local schools. The state, under indicator 5 has targets, and you can see that they measure 3 areas of placement or environments for students. The federal government does not track partial inclusion like we have at our state level. So they track full inclusion, whether a student is in a substantially separate environment or whether they're out of district. And the state target for full inclusion, where the student is 80% of the day in regular classes, is about 67.5%. For substantially separate, it's about 13%. And for students who are out of district, the state target is 6%. Now you can find your individual school district's data at the DESE website under the school district profile. They have state reports. You can read all of the indicators or just where your district falls under indicator 5, the environments for students with disabilities. And it'll show you where your district is, where the state target is, and where actually the state is, so that you can kind of see, are you meeting the state target? And if not, so for example, if you had in your district 10% of the students out of district and the state target was 6, I think that's a conversation to find out, why is your district not meeting the state target and not providing additional programs within district, more inclusive environments to support students with disabilities. To do all of this, to make those changes in your school district, you need to have a plan. And implementing change can be a frustrating challenge because there's so many things in place and you have to kind of shake up the system. Often it requires different types of approaches and additional professional development. I used a model that was outlined at the IRA Center. I love the Peabody IRA Center website. It has it's using Cotter's module of change to prepare for inclusion. And for each one of these steps on this model, the link that I have here has a full page of a description of how a district could prepare for this. And you can see a district needs to prepare for inclusion first, then implement changes, And to be able to sustain inclusion, it needs to have some type of evaluation and continuous improvement cycle. And so the preparation means that you need to have these conversations within your district. The district establishes that this is more of a priority. They form a team, maybe create a vision of what they want to do. So they set themselves up to have a vision in the process. As part of to implement changes, good communication is always a good idea. That would enable action steps to be formed and to happen. And also we need to celebrate those short-term wins, because this might be a longer process than a 1 year or 2 year kind of change model. And then anything that a district does, there should be a focus on, how do we continually improve and expand and, anchor these changes within the system so that it becomes a part of the structure of the school. And so this is just one model of how change can happen and a discussion. So if anyone who's interested in kind of helping their district move forward in a change cycle, this is a great link to more materials and discussion on this topic. There's also a guidebook put out by our State Department of Elementary and Secondary Education for educators, and it talks about inclusive practice. That refers to that instructional behavioral strategies that we talked about in session 1, which was UDL, Universal Design for Learning, PBIS, Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports, and the third one was SEL, Social Emotional Learning. And that can improve the academic and social emotional outcomes for all students in a school, especially those with disabilities in those general education settings. So the guidebook has several tools that are designed to strengthen inclusive practices, empower the educators to meet the needs of all students. And so I think it's also kind of tied into the education evaluation process. And so this is a nice guidebook that's available to both educators and families. The guidebook speaks to several examples of where inclusive practices are kind of supported by the leadership in schools. And I think that's another key element, so that the leaders are establishing opportunities for the educators to collaborate together, to share ideas and information, to facilitate any professional learning that needs to happen in the school or district environment. I think they're the ones who are probably helping to collect data to assess progress and review that data consistently to make sure that the district is on track to meet that vision, to meet the stated goals that they have in this process. I think educators need support, and there could be lots of multiple means of representation of that support to meet the needs of educators. Assistive technology is maybe key to a lot of this movement forward and can help the process. And I also think we need to provide support for educators so that they can foster that positive social, emotional, and behavioral development of all students. The guidebook also speaks to what an effective inclusive classroom might look at. And so I think that's another benefit of accessing and using the guidebook as a resource. And you can see here, they kind of show what it would look like from different perspectives. So what would the educator be doing? What would the student be doing? And what will the classroom look like? For example, the educator might be providing lots of options for student engagement and persistence and self-regulation. The student would be making connections between new content, prior knowledge, and real-world applications. And that classroom would support a variety of tasks and learning formats. So you can see that differentiated types of opportunities for all different students to be supportive in a general education inclusive classroom. And so I've got a link here to the actual guidebook page that shows this section of an example of what things might look like. Inclusiveschools.org also has some great resources, and they have an article on what does an inclusive classroom look like. So if you're unsure of what that model might look like, you can get some more information. I've said it a couple times, but I really think communication around this process is very important. It's almost key to success. Collaboration among educators and their families is essential. And so that good communication would help ensure the success, because things might change. It might look different. And we just have to explain that to everyone in the process. So education teams, and I think this is a team approach, that families and schools working together, parents, students, teachers, paraeducators, administrators, all need to develop consistent expectations, common language, so that the following programs and strategies can be successfully implemented. And I think SEPACs have a unique role here. They can support the district to help explain the changes to families. They can work with the district to develop answers to questions that families and communities might have. And so you're ready to explain the process, explain the changes to the community and to families. Language is so important in this process, because I think we need to always communicate appropriately and respectfully. And if you're not aware, there is people first language, which emphasizes the person first and not the disability. So we always want to make sure that we're emphasizing abilities and not limitations. We don't use offensive language, and we avoid stereotypes. If this concept is new to you, I have another link here to the CDC that speaks to talking about communicating with and about people with disabilities, so that we're all in a respectful place when we're making sure that we're sharing information about programs and students and people with disabilities. It all comes down to that family engagement concept. When families and schools work together, students have better outcomes. So when the school district solicits feedback from your community, listening to thoughts, ideas, incorporating them into the district's vision, it allows everyone to have a sense of ownership and, kind of buy-in into the process. Our state Department of Education has an educational vision, which is driving this concept of supporting the whole student and allowing students to have that rich educational environment. I've kind of couched all of this concept of working with schools around inclusion under the duty in our law here in Massachusetts for SEPACs to, when you're meeting regularly with school officials, that you need to be able to participate in the planning, development, and evaluation of special education programs. So I think looking at your indicator 5 data, moving it forward to good discussions around, the inclusive opportunities in your school program. What are the environments that are available for students? And if any changes need to happen, that you're participating in the planning, development, and evaluation of those changes. Just to let everyone know, we have an annual membership in Massachusetts for MassPAC to support both SEPACs and districts. Our fiscal year runs from July 1 through June 30th. Registration and renewal is open. So you can just kind of check out our website. And if you have any other questions, please contact us. We have our phone number, but you also can complete an online intake form to get answers to your questions. And we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.